While AI can talk to humans and other AI, humans still need to work with other humans in the future. So these soft skills such as critical thinking and teamwork, these are still very important as kids prepare for a career in the future. Experiences like team building and leadership experiences, that's still going to be invaluable.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of WIT. I'm here with Johnson Cheng, CEO of Voyager Education. I'm really excited to talk to him today because I think not only is he an expert in the field of AI, but he's also a good person. So we're going to jump right into it. We're going to be talking about what kids can do during the age of AI. But first, we're going to ask him a couple questions about his background and what his definition of AI is. Welcome, Johnson.
Thanks for having me here, Derek. So we at Voyager teach students AI, computer science, sustainability, and space science. And we empower them by developing their hard skills, their knowledge in AI, and their soft skills, such as teamwork and critical thinking. My definition of AI is computers' ability to reason and to learn. So a lot of that has to do with machine learning and deep learning.
Great. So in your experience, how should we prepare our kids for the age of AI to make those decisions, to think about what's right and, how early they should be using it, or even should they be using it? Like, there's a lot of questions around that, but maybe if you give me like a general overview of like what you know and what you felt is, most appropriate at different age groups, anything you want to talk about first.
Off the top of my mind, there are three things that in my personal experience help me a lot to think when it comes to developing kids for the age of AGI. One is building a strong foundation of not only hard skills, but also soft skills. While AI can talk to humans and other AI, humans still need to work with other humans in the future. So these soft skills such as critical thinking and teamwork, these are still very important as kids prepare for a career in the future. And experiences like team building and leadership experiences and learning how to work in projects, that's still going to be invaluable. Even when you're working in a company, it could be a small company, but still you're working with clients. And in the future, I think these skills will be still very, very valuable and the ability to learn. Second is that I think AI makes us better humans. And the reason I say that is, for example, as a parent, I have three boys and they all have different personalities and they all have different styles and learning preferences. And I have bought a ton of parenting books that I haven't had time to read yet. So I learned to summarize a lot of that content and customize it for my kids so I know specifically what techniques and what phrases I should use for each of the kids. So AI helps us to be better humans. And for kids, it's them learning how to teach themselves new knowledge and to help themselves learn with AI. So using some of the personalized tools and using AI to expedite learning. For example, in our Python 101 course, we have an AI agent that answers questions and help students debug. So some students are more advanced than others and they want to move ahead of the class and they want to get ahead. So they have the AI agent to help them answer questions and not be bogged down by the pace of the class. And other students lower. And sometimes the teachers don't have the attention, energy, or time to help them. They can self-service and ask the AI agent to explain further certain concepts. And using AI to learn is super important. And the third is, I think that in the future, there's certain roles and occupations that are called like the soul touching occupations will be still very invaluable and won't ever be replaced. For example, teachers. I think teachers are still super important when it comes to encouraging the kids to learn, motivating them, and caring for them. There's nothing that replaces a teacher tapping on the shoulder of a student and say, hey, buddy, how are you doing? And I think that human to human connection, a soul to soul connection is super important. That's how I think about the future.
Yeah, sounds like, humans first, but the AI can make you better. The knowledge and productivity and learning about any facet essentially is at someone's fingertips. Of course, the Python, like how early, what's the lowest age would someone start learning Python?
I think the suggested age is 8. Our Python course course is based on a dim sum theme. So everything's surrounded around the theme of food. So if you've been to the premises, if you've been to a dim sum restaurant, chances are you'll be able to understand most, if not all, Python concepts. And so I think 8-year-old is a good starting age for Python.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that. And that's really cool that there's a little bit of Hong Kong culture too. What's your
Yeah, I
favorite dim
think
sum? What's the dim sum to go to?
I like Hakao.
Gotta have hagao. Yeah, which is shrimp
Yeah.
dumplings for people, steamed shrimp dumplings, right?
Yes. And the reason we use dim sum as a theme is that everybody relates to food and everybody relates
Mm.
to, going to a dim sum restaurant, having seafood or pizza or whatnot. So everybody can relate to food. And I think kids can get very excited about food very quickly. So that's why we use dim sum as a theme.
I think it's quite interesting. I've been to your place and you don't even have a TV in your living room, actually, do you? I mean, like,
I,
that's not your actual living room, but that's kind of what it looks like, which is like it's a library of books. I love the fact that we're talking about embracing technology and using it early, but also encouraging, learning from a more traditional or in the real world kind of approach. For listeners who are just starting out, like Python is like the base language to learn in AI and coding and setting up these language models. So what was your inspiration behind that?
we chose Python because Python essentially is like the English of programming languages. And it's very robust with a lot of libraries. So if you learn English, chances are you'll be able to communicate even when you're abroad most of the time. And there are slangs and there are tools and there are books that are written in English. And in fact, many of them are written in English. So it's very robust and it's very useful. Python is the same. I mean, there are many, many programming languages out there, but if you learn Python and you get the gist of it, you can build your own AI models, you can build your own tools. Also, if you want to switch to, let's say, JavaScript, you need to write in React or something else. It's a lot easier to understand other languages once you've learned Python. And nowadays, if students want to get into data science or whatever professional field, chances are they're going to have to work with data. And Python is the best programming language when it comes to working with data and machine learning.
It sounds like I was a part of the Latin club in high school, and that was very helpful for English and any other base language. And so that's kind of, I think it sounds like that's what your approach is to the learning, is get them started on the basics and something that's transferable because it's never changing AI landscape, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's one thing we always emphasize in our courses, which is we take away a practical skill that they can put on their resume. For example, Python, we prefer to teach Python to 8-year-olds rather than scratch to earlier ages because kids can put Python on their resume, right? Even when they apply for jobs later on, right? They can say, I've learned Python. I think that's practical.
Right, right. It's highly useful and living in this time as well that jobs are uncertain and, what are kids going to do when they graduate from college? So starting them early and having that in their resume is going to propel them, right? I've actually talked to somebody else who said, essentially, if you don't know how to use AI, then you may be jobless, or it's a core skill that you'd have to have on your resume.
It is. And I think that the humans that use AI will replace the humans that don't. It's very true. I mean, we are working with companies right now and helping them train their employees and implementing some of the AI solutions. And you could see the productivity go up by like 20x, 100x. That's easy. But I think that a lot of employees, a lot of people, they fear that AI will replace their jobs. And that's been an argument against implementing AI. But I think that what AI can do a lot better than humans is like automating workflows. We don't want to do like very mundane and repetitive tasks at work either, right? We want to do more value-adding work. We want to be more creative. We want to think strategically. So I think AI can help us take care of the stuff that we don't want to do, but they're nonetheless necessary while freeing us to do things that we like and where we can add more value at work.
I would like to say that we're still in very early stages, and this course is very new for a lot of people. So what are the latest developments? Like, where are we seeing things going? And especially since you're an investor as well, right? I know that you invest in AI companies. You've been doing this for years, guys. He's been doing this for years. So he's been seeing like firsthand where it's been going.
Yeah, I think there are so many exciting developments now. I'll share a few that really excite me. One is just in the recent weeks, Anthropic released a framework that they call MCP. And without getting into the details, basically think of it as the USB-C. You charge your phone, you charge your electronic devices with USB-C. Now, MCP is kind of like the standard where the AI model can use to connect with other data sources. It frees up the user's time so you don't have to like write custom integrations. That's really important. That's like saying you have a standard contract or it's like the octopus card. And I think that's going to unlock productivity, but also unlock the adoption of AI agents. The other thing that I'm very excited about is how drastic improvement and effective compute driven by hardware like Rubin that was just released last night at NVIDIA's GTC. I think that's really going to drive science forward, especially in biotech, healthcare, and physics and environmental science. I think with such powerful compute, we can actually do very predictive analytics and do a lot more in advancing science. I wouldn't even be surprised if, in the next few years, we'll start to see more and more Nobel Prizes awarded to AI. And then another very exciting development that I see is what we call embodied AI. Essentially, it's putting large language models in these robots. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if I see like a robot dog or if I see these robots patrolling the streets in China and in the States. And it's already happening. And the key driver for that is the costs have come down by, a factor of 10 at least. A robot dog by Boston Dynamics is what, 76,000 US dollars, but another one by Unitree, which has mostly the same functions. It only costs like what? It's starting from $1,600. So I think that because the price has come down by a lot and because of how mature the supply chain is in China, I think that will really accelerate adoption across the board.
Wow, 76,000. I mean, you might pay somebody 76,000 a year, but that robot is just going to keep going. You just got to plug them in, recharge them every night. So maybe there's energy management is a job, making sure these robots are maintained or effectively monitoring things too. It's a whole gateway of opportunity right there. How far away do you think we are from that? I mean, with the costs coming down like that, do you think we're 5 years away from that, 10 years away from that, or it's already happening?
I think it's already happening. I think to see like wide scale adoption, I would say in 2, 3 years, I've seen videos of these robot dogs carrying sort of heavy loads up mountains for the tourists. I've seen these robots roaming the streets together with the police. And we already see like hotels and restaurants being serviced by robots all the time. So I think it's happening. One area where I would be very excited to see robots working alongside humans is like in the construction and labor intensive industries. Because in the construction industry, you see a lot of injuries. Many of them are unnecessary. And when the breadwinner of the family gets hurt, then, it really hurts those families. So I think if we have robots working alongside humans and carrying the heavy load, I think that will reduce injuries by a lot. We should also see like robots in the medical space, like helping people walk, taking care of the elderly. I think we need a lot of that here in Hong Kong.
I mean, yeah, the application it's endless and it would be really helpful. You mentioned the octopus card and, synonymous with that is the amazing subway system we have in Hong Kong called the MTR. And I just saw them showing one of the robots as the scout when things go wrong or they got to check something up. And it made me think like that must have been a job and someone must have had to do that before. And that must have been extremely scary and dangerous. There's lots of potential there. Let me ask you about, because we've been talking about autonomous driving for a while. And I know that's something that you certainly been looking at for a long time. So are we like only a year away? Will people really accept it? Or because I still think like a robot making decisions for me on the road is something that most people are probably pretty scared of.
I think autonomous driving is one of the things that we always say like, oh, it's only 1 year away and then it's another 5 years. So it's very, very hard to predict. I have invested in an autonomous driving company called AutoX in Shenzhen. It's a US company, but it's based in Shenzhen. And what I've learned in this industry is one, I think the issue to adoption is mostly human. By that I mean, one is if the government can turn a switch and say, okay, I'm going to give everyone licenses to operate robo-taxis and roll out autonomous driving across the board. The government can say yes overnight, and this could happen. The issue is you'll have millions of drivers immediately go unemployed. So that's one. That's a huge issue. Second is an issue of trust. For some strange reason, even if we know that the AI is 10 times more accurate and much better driver than we are, we tend to trust humans more than machines. And there's also a liability issue surrounding that. If the AI somehow crashes, then what happens? Who bears the liabilities and what does insurance cover? So I think we need to iron out some of those issues and sort of educate the public about, safety. Then we'll see widespread adoption. But in terms of the technology, I think there are two schools of thought. One school of thought says, okay, you need a combination of cameras and LiDARs and other sensors, and then you create a more holistic picture to train the AI model. The other school of thought says we can completely rely on computer vision, and that's it. I think mentally, I know that the vision only model works. And there's an argument to be made why it's better, technologically speaking. But emotionally, psychologically, I prefer the one with the multiple sensors because, you can see that LiDAR can see through fog, can see through obstacles, and can see through optical illusions and whatnot. So I think there's a lot of that, like a human factor that's really stopping the adoption or hindering the adoption. But I think based on what I've gathered, I think the technology is almost there, like 99% there, if not there already.
Wow. What would be that 1%? Is it the human for us to decide on that? Or that you're saying that
I think
technology is there to do its job? It's just, it's a matter of us adopting it.
Yeah, I think with autonomous driving, tolerance for error is actually very low, and we have a higher standard for machines than humans. For example, like you see Waymo in the States, I think they're 99.9 something percent, right, in terms of accuracy. But when it comes to autonomous driving, it needs to get to very, very close to 100%, asymptotically close to 100%, because, you talk about millions of people and millions of cars. And there are always these, what we call tail cases, like these really strange and sort of very odd and rare incidents that could happen. And they need to train the model enough to take care of those situations as well. I don't think that 100% of those situations are trained. And humans are better at making judgments at things they have never seen before based on very little experience, whereas machines are not. Machines need much more data to train, which is why they're also trying to break through in that from an algorithm standpoint.
Wow. Let's shift gears to, I know that you are talking more about it and having groups about how people can utilize small businesses and business in general, actually, to utilize AI. Like, what are you seeing? What are the areas of productivity where people can multiply their output?
Off the top of my head, there are three areas where people can use AI and generate productivity gains. One is in terms of back office. There's a lot of paperwork, like expense management, and then HR, and you have bookkeeping, and you have all these things that require a lot of human processing. I think that corporations that are now coming to us and work with us, they're saying, we need X number of people, 10 days to solve this problem. And I look at the problem and it's like machines can solve this in half an hour or less. So I think there are lots of opportunities for automation and automated workflows in operations and in back office. Second is that I think there's a lot of value to be unlocked by customer data. So each corporation, each company should have a lot of customer data, but most of the time, and I can't speak for all, but a lot of the times this data is underutilized. There's a gold mine. It's like you have a gold mine in the company and you can't access it. And that's because maybe CRM software is too hard to use and people are lazy. They don't want to use it. I think with AI, you can really dig into the data and start analyzing and finding patterns and start suggesting, okay, what you can do with certain clients. And I'll give you an example. I use an AI app on my phone. It's for customer relationship management, and it's called Clay. It's a really neat app, and I wish I had invested in them, but I didn't. It analyzes my contacts and their activities across LinkedIn and Facebook and tells me, who I should get back in touch with and who changed jobs and, where did I meet that person, etc. So I can use AI to have a conversation to understand okay, what's my relation with this person? How can I further deepen this relationship? How can I help them grow? So customer relationship management. And then the third is for companies that are in manufacturing or in construction. I think that AI can really help with quotations. If you think about it, let's say you're in a construction industry or any industry for that matter. If you want to come up with a quotation or a proposal for a tender process, it takes you weeks. But if you have AI, you could be much more agile and you could come up with a proposal in like less than a day. And I think that speed will become your real competitive advantage.
Well, that means that smaller companies can compete with bigger companies in a way if they leverage the technology. It's not just a monopoly.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised that smaller companies are now saying, and we're hearing this from our clients, they're saying sort of what I call supercharge me. How can we keep the number of employees? We're not laying anybody off, but we keep the number of employees, keep the team size, but we do 10x more business, right? How can we supercharge the business with AI? And I think that's a tremendous opportunity because previously, if you're a small company, it's very difficult to compete with large companies. I think the tech infrastructure is one, you don't have as many people, you don't have as much capital. But now you can actually use AI to help you augment your processes and even outcompete and innovate faster. And I think that's where small and medium-sized businesses have an advantage because they can adopt AI faster than large enterprises.
Wow. So there's going to be some titans that may fall and some newly
Absolutely.
minted tech or whatever in the
Absolutely.
company.
Yeah, I think this is the age of startups and small and medium-sized businesses. I think this is the time to utilize AI and outcompete the incumbents.
I mean, should someone my age be learning Python or anyone 25 and above, 30 above, or like older, even older people, should they learn Python or?
Actually, we have a lot of adults as clients, and I think what they're looking for is just to understand the sort of the structure of the language and how it is and what it's like. Most of the time, when adults join our courses, they're not looking to master Python, but they're looking to say, this helps me think computationally. This helps me talk to my tech team. This helps me think, oh, this is how computers think. This is how things work. And it gives them more ideas on how to innovate or how to automate processes. But no, I don't expect adults to code. In fact, most of the coding that I do is done by AI now. But because I know Python, I can go back to the AI and say, no, this is the wrong direction, or you shouldn't be doing this. You should use this technique. And these are the APIs. These are the variables that you should use and how to put things together.
How
Yeah.
has the openness been from your clients like to adopt it as well? Have they been resistant, super resistant, or like, hey, this is urgent and we need to get on top of this?
We're getting a lot of inbound inquiries, and there are more projects than we can handle at the moment. And I think that a lot of small, medium-sized businesses are saying, how can we use this opportunity to outcompete the incumbents, as I said before? And there are these things that they really don't want to do, right? Like nobody wants to like collect receipts and like scan them and then like log them, right? We have this tool that allows us to just snap a picture of the receipt and then it logs the expense in the back end and you get reimbursed. Like this should be a completely automated process. This is only one example, but there used to be like enterprise software that people subscribe to, and then you have these large implementation projects. But now with these like what we call like almost like I call these like widgets and tools that you can just pick up right away with no training at all. So I think that really lowers the barriers to entry. And I think these enterprises have been coming to us with these requests.
Wow. So it sounds pretty hot to me. That's why I was going to ask, so like, for example, you invested in a US company that operates in Shenzhen. But what's the environment like in general? Maybe if you want to talk about Hong Kong or what it's like to cross collaborate or, what are the synergies have been like? Obviously, I think, you're working from different perspectives. The cool thing is that you're from here, Hong Kong, but you did study at a pretty cool school in Cornell. And what's that been like, having an international background and seeing firsthand what's worked and what hasn't?
So I had three observations. One is that I think that we're going to see AI becoming more of like a part of sovereignty and AI getting more and more political as the day goes by. So I think that cross-country collaborations will be hindered by political voices and forces. So I think countries are treating this like it's nuclear secrets. But the great development that I find find to be very promising and satisfying is the open source movement. Unlike the development of nuclear weapons and nuclear power, a lot of AI development is based on open source models. And the fact that DeepSeek open sourced its model is a great contribution to the industry. Now, for me, I think that being in Hong Kong and having experienced the States and having worked in China in an e-commerce platform, I think that the styles are very different. And I think that especially for students that are looking to be at the forefront of science or AI, I think that increasingly it will be more difficult to stay in the States. But I would say that the US will still have a lead in many of the sciences and in AI.
It's too bad there can't be just a universal one that everyone can work on. By the way, everyone,
Actually,
Voyager education, Voyager, it's Star Trek. He's a Star Trek fan, so that's something we can agree on.
yeah. Voyager is named after NCC Voyager and also Voyager 1 and 2, which are the first probes that went the furthest in space. I think that if we see a unifying AI, that would be like Skynet, and that would be our common enemy, which is, I think, worse than having two countries compete against each other.
This is why I'm putting on the video, because that's my response, is an eyebrow.
I am increasingly aware that the possibility of Skynet happening is not minimal. It's no longer zero.
Really?
Probability of that is increasing by the day.
Is consciousness part of the equation? Does the AI need to be conscious in order to have Skynet's abilities, let's say? Or I know this
My,
is a
my
question
answer is
that it's
no.
very, like, it's a tough question to answer.
My answer is no because of my beliefs. I believe that people have souls, and that's what differentiates us from machines. Machines may demonstrate the ability to reason, the ability to learn, and traits of consciousness, but I think consciousness is innate to humans. Machines may protect themselves and recognize their own existence, but I think that consciousness is idiosyncratic to humans only.
Okay. I've been on this journey to learn more about AI, and I still feel like such a beginner, but I think one thing stands out that is it is predictive. It anticipates based on past history, and I guess we as humans have a pretty bad history of mean stuff. So if it got a hold of that, I think that'd be, yeah, I can see, and then obviously I'd control things. So we have to be careful, essentially, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Right?
even when I speak with enterprises about implementing AI, we have certain checklists that help them, at least keep it secure, make sure it's ethical, make sure that things are done properly. Yeah, I think we have to be careful. Yes. And there are inherent biases that could be embedded in the systems as well. Let's say, for example, again, using expense accounts, right? Some certain expenses from a certain individuals are more likely than others statistically to be rejected. Let's say it happens to be a female colleague for whatever reason,
Hmm.
right? The AI will train on that data and say, for colleagues that look like or talk like or just like that employee, we should reject the expenses. This is not impossible. I'm not saying this is happening. I'm saying
Hmm.
that be very mindful of biases, but at the same time, we have to be mindful of the controls that we put in the AI systems. Like, just because there's one value system applies to one culture does not mean that it applies to another culture. And what does alignment mean? So we have to be mindful of that and at least document it so that when people pick it up and improve upon it, like they can do a better job and they'll be aware of the pitfalls.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that like everyone should know what's going on. I think that's why it seems like I've noticed because recently you've been more about educating people and just talking about it and how it works and stuff, just because it's important, I think, in this time to have an opinion and to voice. Another reason
Yeah,
why I'm starting
yeah.
this podcast, because otherwise I know my background. I got to computer science 212, and once I got to object-oriented program, I was like, okay, I just hope I pass. And luckily I did. Got my degree. But that was it. That's where I stopped. Let's say, for somebody out there who doesn't really have as much use, maybe it doesn't necessarily apply as much and be productive. Like, what should they know? Like, what are the top three things that they can kind of take away from, this conversation?
I think one is that AI will only become more powerful, but the earlier we learn about it and the more we know about it, the better we can use it to make us better humans, make us better parents, better teachers, better entrepreneurs, and better friends. Second, the more we know about it, the less fear we will have and the more competitive and productive we will be. And the third is just stay in tuned, listen to Derek's podcast. And it's a very exciting field that can be applied across almost all industries. And it will certainly make our companies, our economies, and our lives better.
I'm going to ask you our last question here, and I really want you to talk about your faith-based investing as well, and what are the criteria that you look at, and sort of what is the mission behind that?
So when we look at companies, we often have in mind our own mandate. And so our mission is to invest in companies that make the world. We have a mandate that drives our investment approach. And the mandate states that we invest in companies to make an impact in the world. And we do that by investing in them and by guiding them along. And so while we don't have a white list of companies we look at, we do have exclusion list. We don't invest in defense companies or cannabis companies. And we hope that in everything that we do in our investments and in dealing with other investors, dealing with startups, that we can be salt and light in the world and hopefully bring people to Christ and advance God's kingdom.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for joining me on this show, and I appreciate your insights and your voice, and certainly your moral compass and integrity as a person. And I think, it's much needed in this world. So I appreciate you taking a leadership position in that. And thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Derek, for having me. Thank you.